So we're here to talk through the basics of Araf puzzles. Araf is a style that matches some intuitive feel, like puzzles like Numberlink or other puzzles that involve connecting things, but where you're figuring out which things can connect by almost sketching out those interactions, as well as region packing puzzles like Phenomena or similar styles where the size and shape of regions have to also fit together and work. And so what we'll do in this video is talk through the Monday and Tuesday puzzles and get a sense of some of the basics of this style. One of the most fundamental basics of the style is that regions that are the same in size or one apart in size can't connect. And when you start to think about different parts of the puzzle, we can see that, there are some walls up here, but a group like 3 can connect to this, can connect to this, can connect to all of these. One of the places to always begin an Araf puzzle is try to find one or a few clues that just can't find many homes. And one of the places to start in this puzzle is with a spot like this 3. We see it can immediately come up to this 1. It can't come over to this other 3. We know that based on size. It can't connect to any of these 4s, and even by the overall shape of this region, it would take too many cells to reach all the way to this 5. And so this cell is not only pinned in this corner, it's pinned near a whole set of clues it can't connect to. And so as a necessary start, it comes out and takes these cells. That quickly forces a situation where this 2 has to come to the right. The only clue it can actually reach is this one. It's now 4 large in size, so that's a full completion. This has to extend out. This now has to extend out. This has to extend out. And we're going to get a set of steps like this for a while where sort of chasing ends away from each other. It's almost like Nurikabe logic, but we still need to find what is the home for this clue. It's now using 6 cells, and every other clue in this grid, except for what's probably the thematic clue from Serkan, this big fish, is too small. If we took 1, 2, 3 more cells, this is now 9 total, can't reach this 8. This would take even 10 cells to reach, and you can see it's topologically impossible to get over there. This has to somehow connect up to the 12, and we don't know for sure which cells it takes, but once we know that we've blocked the grid in this way, this set is going to connect up here, this set's going to connect here. If this 4 and the 7 connect, these cells on the outer edge must be part of the group, and that actually takes 6 total cells. And so this shape is forced. You can say it's an unusual shape to force, but we always have to pack edges and corners, and so that a region is always pulled out to these parts is true in an Araf puzzle. We have 7, 8, 9, 10 or so cells taken here. If this takes 10 to just reach to the cell, it can't take 1, 2, 3 more. So this cell to be taken by this group would add too many. So this cell has to be part of this group. That makes it 6 large. And at the very least, this region in this Araf has to take these cells to the right, again, to be compact. It's pulled to the edge. All cells are used. This is now 11 large, and so we'll just mark this in as filled group. The rest of the puzzle comes from coming back to these very isolated groups. 4s can't connect to 5s, so we've got that line we can draw in. This has to extend over, this has to extend over, these come up, they don't touch. This comes in, this comes in. This is 6 large, but when this 5 starts to extend up, we see it's pinned. The 5 can't connect into a 6 because these are just one number apart. It could connect to a 3, but there are far too many cells being used right now, so it's going to have to do this. This 3 now is going to connect to the last remaining place it could connect. You'll see that's 5 total cells, fully used. This is now 6 in this region, which is good. All regions filled, all clues consumed. A hopefully good introduction to Araf set of basic steps, and these same basic steps will appear in this Tuesday challenge from Prasanna. A lot of the clues are nicely paired. We already talked about how pairs of clues don't share, can't work together, and they're also consecutive coming down this, and so this 1 can't use any of parts of this 2 can't use any parts of that 2, this 3 can't use any parts of the 3 or 4, this 4 is like this 5 is like this. These extend 1 more position over at the very least. We now have 1 group that looks finished and trapped, but the remaining ones still have to keep extending over. You'll see there's a fun thematic shape in the middle, which is all the clues are 8s or infinity symbols, so the same symbol rotated, I guess is the way to think about it. There's a little more you can do at the top because these have to keep extending. This group that's the one with an 8 has taken us 7 total cells, so that's certainly complete. This could continue extending. The 2 might come down here, the 3 might come up here. We've got to think a little about those connections. This 3 coming across at least needs to take one more. This needs to take one more. This needs to take one more. These are steps we can mark for sure. We now have to come to the right side, and that the 7 and 9 are 2 apart and could connect themselves means there's not as much to do there, but if we come back to how we thought before, digits which are very constrained, cells very constrained, this corner cell is the most constrained of them all. It can't connect to any of these clues near it, so it's going to force some start of a shape like this. And we now have to get to thinking, where do these digits connect with different clues in the puzzle? A thing that will work in any puzzle of this style is just when you start to think of potential connections, like imagine this 13 and this 8 connect, we isolate a clue in the grid. You always have to be leaving even numbers of clues, not odd numbers of clues as you make connections. And so we can actually see by logic right away that this 13 and this 4 have to connect. There's no other path out of this region that doesn't isolate this region or that region. So there's some connection here. The 13 and the 8 might connect. The 13 may also come up this way, but there's a space where this 12 and this 4 have to work together to some extent. The main consideration is that we see that we have a group coming from a 2, a group coming from a 3, and another group coming from a 3, only one of which can hit an infinity symbol. And so these have to connect to some of the large numbers on the right side. And for a group like this, which already has 7 cells, getting all the way to this 12 is not possible. And that's because it would take 12 total cells to get to here. It would take 12 cells to get to this 13 as well, so that is possible. And you can think about a conceptual place where this loops back to the 13 that will isolate this 3. And so this space of what can you connect to that gives the right parity, the only place we can connect this is up to that 13. Now we have to think about, for the remaining clues here, how does this 2 or this 3 sort of work with these remaining symbols? It could be the case this 3 hits this 13 or this 2 hits this 13, the other will hit this infinity. Those both look okay, but we can say that something like this is going to be happening, that the 13 comes out. We're still trying to map what connects to what. The 13 here really can't come over to this 4 in either way. If it comes to this one or to this one, it's going to leave an odd number of 3 options there, and this 8 will be stranded, and so we know that these connect. And a last deduction is really seeing that while this 12 could potentially connect to this 4, it's going to force the remaining 12 to come around this way and leave just 4 cells behind. And so we don't know the sure connections of these groups, but these are the ones that link together. I'll actually mark this in just for ease of use. And so the remainder of this puzzle is going to be making sure we fulfill and complete all these groups. And so we have these connections. We now have to do a last thing with Araf puzzles is always make sure we have valid sizes of groups. And one thing I had not done at the start, while like this group was 5 large and this group is 5 large and this group is 7 large, and so those all work within those things. Right now this group is only 4 large. And so even though we formed a connection of these 2 pairs, it needs to take more cells. It needs to take at least this cell. That means this one takes at least this cell, which means this 13 has to take at least these 2. That means these connections are coming up. That means as this comes in, we finally get to 6, so this is finally a valid group. We close off this group, these connect. This 12 has to take at least 5 cells because it's got to be larger than the 4, and so this is the look of taking at least those cells. This group here also has to take at least 5 cells, and so we're going to see that as fairly constraining. What it actually means is this comes across, this comes across. There are now just 8 cells in this upper right corner, and the 7-9 group has to be exactly 8 large. So put that in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This has to take one more, and then has to take one more after that. And so this now is at finally a valid group at 9. It may need to be larger, but it forces this one to become a 5. This is going to extend over, extend over, extend over. This has to keep extending over. We now actually know the 2 and this 13 come together. And now we have to connect this 3 to this 13 as we talked about before, which is this and this. And this is, maybe in watching my notation, I did this a little bit in ink, so you could still see at the end of the day how this started. The puzzle begins by isolating these clues, seeing how they flow out, isolating this corner, seeing how steps flow out. It then transitions to a different kind of Araf step, which is pairing clues together based on their size. This 3 or this 2, one of them has to come over to here. This 3 has to come to one of these numbers. And so making some of these connections helps. And even when it's not certain exactly the path it takes, knowing that there is some path through these cells means there's kind of a barrier that the other cells from either side of the group are going to have as you add into them. And what we saw at the bottom, for instance, is with that barrier in mind, when you ran into a region that needed to keep taking cells, it pushed out this barrier a bit, but eventually ran into another barrier. And so you end up forcing specific logical shapes because there's no longer any room left to be taking. And so Araf in that way matches the kind of path finding. So these dotted lines and these diagonal lines are kind of number link-like connections. We know these will connect, these will connect, these will connect. And then now Philomeno-like steps of region filling. We know we need to take more cells. When we take more cells, we push things out. And so if you get that balance of intuitive thinking like number link alongside region packing like Philomeno, you'll do well in these puzzles. We will have more videos to cover the rest of this week, but these were the basics, and we hope you learn a little bit that will help you with solving our puzzles in general. We'll see you again soon.